Bags down, spikes on. Welcome to the track. Hi, my name is Colin Weitzman. I'm going to be your host for this episode of Track World News presented by Track Barn. And today I have an exciting guest that's going to be joining us. We have world champion, Olympic silver medalist, the content king when it comes to track and field. You've seen his videos all over the place, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. We have Mr. Aaron Brown. Aaron, thank you for joining us, man. Really appreciate it.
It's crazy to think, but summer is finally over. If you don't want to be looking crazy on your first day back to school or on your first day back to fall training, the sponsor of today's video, Manscaped, has you covered. Manscaped just sent me their brand new performance package, which comes with the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold all your goodies. Look, I've tried a lot of razors in my day, but the Lawnmower 4.0 is just different. Its ceramic blade helps reduce grooming accidents, LED light allows you to shave anytime, anywhere, and since it's waterproof, you can even take it in the shower if you want. You know what they say, look good, feel good, run good. If you want to show up to fall training and dominate like a beast, make sure you use code TWN at checkout when shopping with Manscaped and have an awesome fall training. We'll see you there.
Sir, man, appreciate you having me on.
No problem. Thanks for joining us. And so, like I said, you really are one of the prolific names, I guess you could say, when it comes to the not just track and field and running as a whole, but also the content creation when it comes to track. We've seen a lot of this starting recently, with TikTok blowing up and Instagram changing up the game. What got you interested in saying, I'm going to really utilize social media as an aspect for my brand and kind of develop that way?
Right. A lot of reasons, honestly. Like, to begin with, back a couple years ago, I hooked up with my friend, Jerome Green, who does a lot of social media stuff. He's kind of the one that taught me how to do it myself. And the reason I started with that, man, was just kind of tell my own story, because I felt like the media was saying the same couple of things about me. I was kind of in Andre's shadow. He's the big figure in Canada, and I was like the number 2 guy. And anytime they mentioned me, they just mentioned Andre as well. And it's like I couldn't separate myself from him. And people didn't really know me other than being like the second Canadian. So I'm like, all right, I know I have more to offer. I have a dope story myself, and there's more to me than just being a track person. So I'm like, I gotta let people know who I am off the track. So that's one of the reasons. Another reason was there's not a lot of track content out there. And, if we're trying to make the sport more valuable, then I feel like we need to showcase the best parts of track and field. And that means like the athletes, like showing their personality, showing cool things about the sport, funny things, kind of like really build a culture. Like what is track and field culture? We know what basketball culture is, hockey culture is, football culture, but like what's track culture? You know what I'm saying? So like, that's why I appreciate channels like what you got going on with Race Take and all that, because it actually adds like some elements outside of just the broadcast and you see the athletes on TV for a couple seconds and that's it. But it's like, okay, how do we continue the conversation off the track, and how do we build the sport and make it more popular and marketable? You know what I'm saying? So that's another reason. And really just like letting people know who I am. And like, I get a lot of DMs from people who are young athletes looking up to us as professional sprinters, and they're like, ask me all these kind of questions. And I try to answer every single DM that I get, obviously not the crazy ones where people ask me off the wall stuff, but like the ones where people are like legitimately like curious and want to know, like, how can I do this? Or like, what's it like to be a pro track and field athlete? Because a lot of people don't even know you can go pro. So like, I try to showcase that as much as I can, and I answer them in my DMs. And I'm like, wait, if such and such is asking me this question, I keep getting over and over, and rather than me like answering it each time, let me give them like a personal answer, but then also give them a link to a video where multiple people might have that same question and not know where to ask it. And that way I can help more people all at once. And I can say, hey, check out this video. I go I dive deeper in this video here. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people really appreciate that. So it's a matter of like, it's also fun for me. Like, I like to create, I like to be creative and put stuff out there and make the video and make people laugh or whatever, or inspire people, whatever. That makes me feel good. So a whole bunch of reasons why, but I think it's something that I encourage more athletes to do, because a lot of people were like, yes, this is something that I can hold on to in this sport, and I haven't really seen that before, but like I would like to. I feel like there's a thirst for more track content, but not a lot of supply currently.
Yeah, it's like I like exactly what you said there. Like it extends the conversation, it creates the story. So it's like, okay, we saw the race happen. Now, what happens after that? Because if you watch, I mean, shoot, for the past 2 months, they talked about Kevin Durant wanting a trade. For like so like they found a way to extend this one request for 2 months of content. Like, why is there no, it doesn't have to be on that aspect of things, but like, hey, this is what the race was, these are these athletes, let's tell the stories behind it, extend the conversation, and make some entertaining content along the way. So I'm right there with you. And I mean, what are some of your favorite kinds of content to make? You make a lot of motivational stuff, you make some comedy stuff, you make some other type of things. What are some of your favorite videos and things to make?
I like doing vlogs, because I get to, because I'm filming everything myself, it's hard to like get myself doing certain things. Like I gotta like shoot it from one angle, then move it and then shoot again. But when I do vlogs, like I can just literally just show where I'm at. So like that's when I get to do cool like slow-mo stuff and like add some effects and whatever. So that's always fun to do, like my long form stuff on YouTube. I can really get creative with my effects and whatnot. But then I also like doing like the short little skits. Like sometimes it's just like a clever spin on something that's popular and trending. Like taking something that's popular on the reels and apply it to track and field. Like I always think, okay, how could I apply this to track? And sometimes it turns out really well. I'm like, oh, that was actually pretty dope. So the motivation stuff is always good, just because it fires people up. Sometimes that's my mood. It's like, I need to pick me up. So I'm like, all right, who else needs to pick me up? And sometimes I just post the stuff that I want to hear myself. So I'm like, okay, these words resonate me. Maybe it can resonate with some other people. And I just put it out there. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoy all of it. Like content creation is a fun process. I don't always like the editing part, especially oh my God, it takes so long and that's painful, like especially the long form content. Like when I did my Nairobi vlog, when I went there in Africa, that one was like hours of content. So like breaking down all that, like, cause I did so much. You went to the safari, I had the track aspect, I had like the resort we stayed at and all that. So it took me a long time, but like it pays off once you finish it and you got to watch it back. And I was like, okay, I'm glad I did that, because now like this is something I get to watch forever. And like when my son's older, I could be like, hey, look, when your dad went to Africa, this is what I went through, whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's I'm right there with you. I hate the editing process, but it can be really rewarding when you're done. Like when you finish, it's like, okay, look, I think I might watch my videos the most of anyone else. Like I finish it and I'm like, man, that edit was clean, dude. I put my foot in that. So yeah, I know what you're
exactly.
And of all of your teammates, whether it be on Team Canada or with your training group, which one of them enjoys being in your videos the most?
I'd probably say either Kyra Jefferson or Jerome Blake. They both love to be on camera, and anytime I'm like, yo, I'm gonna film this, they're like, okay. And they're like super excited to be in it. And I'm like, okay, appreciate you like being involved. But it's always nice to like include other people too, because some people don't really know how to film themselves or like how to portray something. Like they don't know how to think outside the box and be creative, whatever. So like when I can include them, they want to put out stuff, they just don't have stuff to put out. So like if I could help other people do that, like I'm all for it.
Mm-hmm. And then got a question for you, because it looks like you might have just recently started a trend. And so I want to know what's been going on. But so a couple weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, you posted how you were missing your luggage. You didn't have it. It was gone for like 2 weeks. Yeah. Then right after that, TT Terry, boom, she's missing her luggage. Then right after that, Marquise Dendy, he's missing his. So all out of nowhere, we're seeing all these athletes starting to miss their luggage. And it looks like you might have started this trend. Do you know what's going on here, why this is happening, and any insight behind the legend of the missing luggage?
Yeah, so right now, honestly, the airlines in general are just terrible. Like they say it's like after effects because of COVID, and I guess it's just hitting us now. But like right now, flying is a disaster pretty much across the board. They said they're short staffed. So like, I guess when you don't have enough staff with the people putting their bags and stuff, like the volume of bags that are going through the airports is just a lot. So a lot of them get mishandled and misplaced and whatnot. So I don't know, my bag made it here. So I'm thanking my lucky stars, because I had back-to-back trips in my last 2 outings where I lost my bag. But yeah, I hope they turn it around soon, because that is terrible. And the wait lines, oh my God, they're crazy. Like if you don't have like pre-check or clear or any type of status, you're waiting hours, man. That is crazy.
Oh, yeah, that would have me so nervous of like, are my bags gonna get here? Are my spikes here? All that stuff, like making sure that you're ready. Because like, man, I gotta work in like 2 days. Like I can't be missing all this stuff. I got enough stuff to stress about. So it's like, yeah, I'd be feeling it for sure. And then first, wanted to transition a little bit over to some of the track and field stuff. So always, whenever I have bad takes, I got to apologize to those that I had. So I had an awful take with you guys on the 4x1. Didn't think you guys were going to win. I thought you're going to get dusted, blown out, wouldn't even be close. USA was going to win it. And so I was wrong. You guys ended up getting the win here at the World Championships. And it was a very exciting race. I was able to, be right there, watching it. Could you kind of take us into that moment of, the 4x1, what that was like, and watching then those anchor legs go at it at the end there?
Yeah, well, first off, I think you should thank Anson because he tagged me in the video of Race Take with Coach Lamont talking about how we're gonna lose, and then they came back on the show and gave him grief. So I put that in my 4x1 reaction video. I included that whole segment, but I didn't know you said it as well. So you might have got some shrapnel too if I knew that, but it's all good, it's all good. But nah, it was like, I just knew after I gave Jerome the stick that this could be the moment, because normally me to Jerome, we haven't had much experience together. Like our first time running together really last year in this order was at Tokyo. And so we're working a new order, which is different for me because I'm used to running with the same guys over and over and over for years. I've been doing this since 2013. So me to Jerome was a new experience, and we completely messed up our handoff, and we still were able to get third and later upgraded to bronze or silver. But then this time, like in the prelims, we messed up again. He said he didn't hear me, so I said, okay. In the finals, I'm gonna scream your name. And in the finals, I screamed his name, and he put his hand back exactly when I called it, and we had a beautiful pass. So like when I did that, and I looked over and I saw where Coleman and Noah was, I'm like, okay, we're like step for step with them, and like this is good. Because I knew if we get it to Andre in contention, even though he wasn't like prime Andre, he still has the ability to run a hot leg off the fly. So when I saw like Marv and Andre get it near each other, and then Marv had to like kind of slow a little bit to get the stick, I'm like, oh, Andre's in the lead? Like, there's no way. Nobody's catching him. There's no way. And so I was on the back stretch, and like the camera wasn't on me because obviously it's following the anchor, but I was back there losing my mind, bro. Like I took my glasses off. I like they broke a little bit. I was screaming like, yeah, like this is our town. Like I'm looking at the crowd, I'm like, our town, like talking crazy because I was in the 100 and the 200, and the Americans swept them, right? So all I heard this whole championship was USA, USA, USA. So I'm like, okay, man, we got to break this up. Like, I don't want a third one where the USA is like going off. And then I saw the women win. I'm like, oh man, they're going to lose their minds if they sweep the relays too. So it was a special moment. And like, it was a great battle. The thing about the US is they have so many people they can use. So like, everybody's like, oh, who's going to run? Which leg? And they have like, they have whatever the expression is, whatever riches.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. There's so many options. It's like
exactly, yeah. So you never know who's gonna step on the track, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. Like they have a lot of options to go to, so they can like maximize each leg if they get it right. But at the same time, there's a lot of pressure. Like if you're the one chosen, like the people behind you are gonna be like, oh, it should have been me, whatever. And people are gonna talk bad or whatever. So there's a lot of pressure on Team USA, and we wanted to take advantage of that, especially with them being on home soil and then getting confident and thinking that they have in the bag after the prelims. We felt like we had a really good chance to sneak in there and snatch it, and exactly how it played out.
Yeah, I remember I was on the corner of the anchor leg, and when I saw like the little mistake, I was like, man, you just gave some daylight to DeGrasse, and everyone knows the saying, like that man's leaving with the medal. It don't matter what it is, figuring it out. So I was like, dang, that like my prediction went right down. I was like, how the heck you win? You sweep this, we can't win the. Oh man, that wasn't great. But like you said, I mean, you guys have had, the consistency helps a lot. Where it's like, many of 3 of your 4, you've been running pretty much the same relay since, like you said, like 2013, like 2016. Like many of the people that were on that Olympic team in 2016, are on this team this year. So it's like you know each other's cues, what's going on. So it just makes it a little bit easier, when it's go time.
Exactly. And that's underrated. Like people just think like you're gonna throw the fastest people on the track and they'll get it done. But you saw the same thing with the Jamaicans. Like they should have won that running away, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about the women. But again, they didn't, because they didn't have the fundamentals down, which is kind of crazy, because you think Jamaica is like the one nation where they grow up with like champs and all that stuff, and that's like embedded in them. So even they can mess up. So if those women who are like arguably the greatest Jamaicans to ever run in their history, if they don't win because of messing up some passes and whatnot, then anybody can lose,
Yeah, it's in a track race that's what, in the 4x1 that's under 35, 40 seconds. Anything can happen. Just the littlest mistake, just that's all that's all the daylight you need.
Yep.
And then wanted to go back a little bit more in the 200 there. So you had a notable thing go on where the block slipped. I remember watching it, and people are like, "Uh-oh, what just happened?" What's going through your head? Like, looking back, do you know why it might have slipped? What happened? What was going through your head there?
Dude, I have no idea. That's never happened to me at a meet. Like it's happened in pre-meet, like at the practice track. And then normally I have some like stand on my blocks, but like in an actual race, that's never happened before. And it was so like, it threw me off my game so much that I was on the ground. I'm like, am I really on the ground right now? Like what is happening? And then when they called the gun back, like the lady's talking to me, she's like, all right, you have 30 seconds to set your blocks, do a run out and get back, because they're trying to rush me for TV time. So I'm there, like my quad is cramping because I like kind of hyperextended a little bit. So I'm trying to like psych myself down and like, okay, you're right. Just get through this round. It's just the first round. You're okay. At the same time, I'm trying to focus on setting my blocks. And then I'm like, should I ask somebody to stand on them? Because I don't know why they fell in the first place. Like, what if they fall again? And then I'm like, oh my God, like there's like a billion things going through my mind. They're like, hurry up. So like I start my run out, like I literally get 2 steps and they're like, get back behind. I'm like, I didn't even get a run out. Like that was like 2 steps and then they're already yelling at me. So I'm like, all right, man, just get through this round. It's just the prelims. I'm looking at who I had in my race. I'm like, okay, aside from Dream, I should be okay. And if I just let him take it, like that's fine. Just advance. So I didn't really push out too hard because I didn't want to have my block slip again. And I just like, once I got in second place, I'm like, all right, we're good. Because I didn't want to like push to an injury either. I didn't know how bad my quad was because it was like throbbing. Yeah. So it turned out to just be like a minor cramp and I was fine. But yeah, that was an experience, bro.
Oh yeah, I would be like, there ain't no way this is going down, because it's like, in the moment, like, do you hear the callback? Like, because in my mind, I would be like, oh man, like I might just be screwed here if they're not calling it back.
No, I heard it because I was about to get up and run, but then I heard the callback. I'm like, oh, thank God, because I didn't know if they're gonna call it back because, sometimes they don't, and that's just tough luck. So I was thankful that they did. But yeah, that I'm glad that was behind me. And every time now, like I make sure I stomp on the blocks like 3 times. Like normally I do it anyway, but like now I'm like really making sure, like, did I stamp? Like no doubt in my mind, like, yes, I did it twice. Yeah, they're in the ground.
Yeah, we're not gonna have this ain't happening again. We're gonna be good to go for sure. Yeah. And then want to kind of flash back a little bit more to like your start here with track and field. Like what got you interested in running and why you wanted to go on this journey, and when did you kind of realize you had some talent here and you could continue?
Well, I grew up playing all kinds of sports just to burn off energy. My parents just wanted me to run around and get it out of my system because I was a hyper kid. And every sport that I did, the common denominator between them was I was fast, and that's what made me good. So like I was really good at soccer because they'd kick the ball down the field, I'll chase it down and then just score. That was like the strategy, is just kick it down for Aaron, he'll run it past everybody and he'll score. Basketball, I was always good on the fast breaks. Football, of course, running deep routes and all that stuff, just air it out and I'll go get it. And then I did track just for fun, and it was like track season. So I'm like, all right, I'll go out here and run. But like when I went, I didn't know anything about pro track. I didn't know about World Athletics or IWF, what it was called back then. I didn't know about Team Canada or anything like that. All I knew was the Olympics. And like, I'm like, okay, I'm way too young to like do like that type of running. So I was just running just like basketball shorts, basketball shoes, just stand and start and just go. Run as fast as you can. Like I didn't even know about like rounds, none of that. Like I knew nothing. But as I kept running and getting faster and people started noticing me, like my club coach, He said, hey, if you come onto my team, you can get a scholarship to the NCAA. And at that point, I didn't even know what that was. And they're like, yeah, like colleges you see like doing this. And I started paying attention more and more. And then I got into it more and more. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take this seriously, like in 11th grade. And that's when I made my first team, Team Canada, when I went to World Youth. And I got second in 100. So then from there, I started getting offers from people, like from colleges and stuff. And like my entire senior year, like I'm taking visits and whatnot. And then, one thing just led to another. And like, that's just how my whole career has been. Like when I went to college, then I started doing well, my sophomore, junior, senior year, I started getting noticed by shoe companies and agents and whatnot. So it's just like, I didn't really know about it. I just kind of fell into it because I just worked hard at where I was at that level. And then that opened up doors to the next stage. And then I just kept going through that door. And then I'm like, all right, how do I figure out how to get better here? It's just like kind of, I always start out like kind of near like the middle, bottom-ish. And then I'm like, okay, how do I get better? And how do I climb? How do I get faster? And I always just figure it out over time. Okay, extend my career. And that's just how I end up here now. I started in 2008 and we're in 2022 and now I'm still doing the same thing. It's kind of just happened that way.
It's crazy to think that the journey started with basketball shoes and some probably shorts under the knee, over the knee and running 100s. And now it's like, all right, we're winning golds at, major championships. It's like, talk about, a journey from here to there, and just one that a lot of people can associate themselves with. Like, I know tons of kids where track was their third or fourth sport, but then grew to, I have some talent in it. Maybe I should keep doing this, and then end up doing it in college or maybe even farther. So it's like, that's a story that many people can relate to of, hey, that's how most of our track athletes probably got started here.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And then, so now quick question for you there, USC guy. And recently, USC, UCLA, and maybe even Oregon, who knows, are announcing transferring over to the Big Ten here. I got the Penn State guy that kind of reminded me of it. How would you feel if you were, USC, and now you realize, oh no, now I got to go all the way up to New Jersey for these track meets and everything? How would that be going through a young 18, 19-year-old Aaron Brown?
Man, that's weird, honestly. Like thinking, like, I'm just so used to it being the Pac, like the West Coast, like thinking about going to the East Coast, like, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan area. This is strange, but it is what it is. I understand it. It's all a money grab, and they're trying to do what they can to make the best conferences possible for for sports that make the most money, like football. Like, let's call it what it is. USC is a football school. And so they're going to do what's best for the football team to make the most revenue for the rest of the school, because that's what pays for the rest of the sports is the football team at USC. So I get it. The Big 12 or Big 10 was probably the second best football conference behind the SEC. The SEC is continuing to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually is like going to take over everything. So they got to do something, and aligning forces with the second best conference to make that more relevant and more powerful. It makes sense economically. It's just weird geographically, especially in track and field. But it is what it is. I would adapt and do what I had to do to be successful no matter what.
Yeah, it would be interesting. There's going to be some, people that are, California kids who live there your whole life. It's like, all right, time to go up to East Rutherford, New Jersey, where it's, 5 inches of snow. It's like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. That could be a big difference. But hey, you're from Canada, you figure it out.
Exactly. And I ran, like, when I was in my senior year, when I did indoors, the one time I've done indoors, we went to Nebraska when it was winter time and it was snowing out, and we're still fine with that. Like, we're cold outside and run inside and do our thing indoors and get the hell out of there. So it'd be a similar thing.
There you go. And something that I've really appreciated that you've talked about a lot recently is the business of track and field. Like, I think that's something that I'm really passionate about. I work in professional sports as my day job, and so it's something that interests me a lot. And you've written a few articles, made a couple tweets, had a few interviews discussing the changes that you'd like to see and things that we need to adapt to when it comes to the track and field side of things. Could you kind of share where that ideas started coming from and what got you interested in the business side of the sport so much more recently?
Yeah, man, it's just conversations that I have with my teammates and people like my contemporaries, the people that I compete with. Like we just all across the board look at the state of the sport and look how it's managed. It's like, man, we operate like an amateur sport, and everyone talks about, oh, there's no money in track, and look at track, like we're not doing things right. We'll never be at the level of the other pro sports. And it's like, what are we doing to even try to get there? You know, like before we write it off and say track can't get there, why don't we look at where it has been successful and figure out how we can apply that to different areas? And then if you really take a deep dive at what track and field is and how it's operated on the professional level, it's mismanaged across the board, right? Like we do so many things that it just does not make any sense the way we do it. And that's just because it's the way things have been done, you know, so they don't, like, other sports are quick to adapt, and that's why they're successful and continue to be successful, because they've adapted with the times. But I feel like track is like the niche sport where it's like, oh, this is how we always did it, so we got to stick to tradition kind of thing. And that's how you get left behind, right? Like if you know, we didn't adapt to using replays and putting stuff on TV, where would the sport be? Like you have to adapt with the technology and the times. And, you know, that's part of why, again, going back to your original question, the first one you asked me, why I do social media stuff, I know where the sport or where the world is headed. And the attention is probably going to go from showing stuff live on TV to showing it live on your phone or on social media apps. Like I really think like streaming is going to be like the next thing where it kind of pushes TV up. Yeah. So if we get good at showcasing our sport on social media and stuff like that and streaming, then we could position ourselves as a sport to be competitive with the other sports that are grabbing attention. Like how is a sport like UFC able to come in and take over boxing, right? Mm-hmm. They are marketed well and they operate well. The business model makes sense, and they operate in a way that fans can latch onto it, and that's how it grows in popularity. So I don't want to hear that like, oh, you know, it's just the way it is, and you know, it'll never be basketball and football and whatever. It's like, why don't we actually operate in a way that makes us viable and competitive against other sports? And maybe we'll attract some fans, and slowly we can build on that momentum. When we get more money, we can do more things and yada, yada, yada. You know, like we just need to change the way we operate. But it seems like a lot of people are scared to say things because the people who do get paid, like the people at the top, don't want to ruin what they got going on. And the people who don't have any money are either afraid to say something because they're thinking they might have a chance to get the money. They don't want to ruin that. Or no one wants to listen to them because they're not at the top. So people might just say, oh, just get faster. Just, you know, go win a medal, and then people might listen to you and you won't complain about money. But it's like, why do you need to be at the top 1% of the sport for you to have a livable wage, right? You can find any practice player in the NFL making six figures, like I think the minimum wage is $400K, and able to support themselves and make a living and be competitive. How is somebody who's like, let's say, fresh out of college, has some potential to go pro, but like might need a little grooming, right? Like get in a new situation with a pro just left college. How are they supposed to be successful and compete against the people who are established when they have all the money, they have all the support, all the resources? Like you go to a meet overseas, they get to travel with their coach, they get their therapist, they get the best lanes, they get every type of advantage. And then this guy has like no contract, trying to support themselves by working in a second job. It's just like, there's no bridge for you to become successful. And when you have that, you have a lot of people that are talented leaving the sport, right? Yeah. And so how do you have a successful sport where like you only have people at the top who are able to support themselves, and then the rest are like left to fend for themselves, and they're getting less and less and less resources as the meets go on? Like the prize money is getting less and less and less, and the appearance fees go to like fewer and fewer people. So it's just like a recipe for, like, I could go on and on about this.
Oh yeah.
So many opinions, and I've thought about this for a long time, but I'll just say that like there's a lot of changes we need to bring to the sport in order for us to be a viable option for people to actually choose us. Like that's like, obviously Devin Allen loves playing football, so that's why he went, but you can't tell me that another reason why is like monetary. Like this is a job. So he probably is looking at like, why would where I'm literally, he ran the number 3 time all time in the hurdles, yet probably is going to make way more money in football where he's fighting for a spot on the team. Like, I'm sure he's going to make it. Like, he's very talented, but how many receivers are out there that are talented as well? But where in track, how many people can hurdle the way he can hurdle? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love so many of the points that you brought up. Like the UFC model is something that I bring up all the time when it comes to what track and field could be. Because look, like if you look back at like, because UFC was not always what it is today. Go back to the early 2000s, go back to the 90s. That was a sport that was going to get banned. Like it was like people were like, this is cage fight, this is brutal. Like it's not even going to be a thing. Violent, and then it realized, okay, maybe we can't do this thing, maybe we can't do that thing, let's adapt, let's change our marketing tactics, and let's make this something that can actually be shown. And now it's one of the biggest sports, you know, in the world. Like some of the biggest athletes, you know, in the world are, you know, Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey. Like those are two of the biggest names, and you know they haven't even fought in you know a couple years. So it's like it can become a huge sport if you learn to market it more in a way that can embrace these big athletes. And also shows you don't have to be, you know, fighting for a title to be a big time name. Like there are some names that are, you know, really popular, really exciting, that are, you know, 15th in their division, 20th in their division, but people are like, that person's exciting because their personality is like, you know, like I really like that. Where in track and field, it's like, are you top 3 in the world? Exactly. Nah, I'm not interested. I don't want it. And it's just like, for me, it's so frustrating because it's like, I think there's a lot of great storylines, and there's tons of other points that I could make as well. But
I know, trust me. And then it's like, we're so time crazed. So it's like, if they're not like running 9.6, they're like, it was just a 9.9, whatever. But it's like, it was a good race though. Like, why don't we hype that up? Like, if your expectation is to be one of the fastest races in history every single time out, you're going to leave disappointed half the time, probably more than that. But if you focus on, was this a good race? Was it competitive? Was it exciting? Or people in the race that like build up the hype of the race itself and say like, who's going to win? Put more stakes on who comes across the line first versus times. Like, yeah, of course, everyone loves a great time. Everyone loves when Steph Curry scores 50 points and has 12 threes, whatever. But like, what about the games where it's like everyone's missing, but then they come through at the end and they make that last shot and they win the playoff game? Like, there's inherently stakes where they have the playoffs. So we understand, like, even though nobody scored over 30 points, they won the playoff game, right? Like, we need more stakes in our stuff. And I think that's a big missed opportunity with like how the Diamond League is structured. Like, people don't really focus on the races and the points and like trying to get into the finals and whatever. And maybe we need to figure out a way to market that better, like make it more of a compelling story that, okay, this person needs X amount of points to make the final or whatever. Like, we're inviting this guy because he needs this amount of points to get it in and he's this close and whatever. So like, if he places third, then like he'll get in or whatever, then that makes it more compelling. It's like, okay, where did he finish? Like, and it's not just like, oh, how fast they run, blah, blah, blah. And like, that's like, we need to get more importance on the races itself and like the meets themselves.
I know Michael Johnson tweeted about that not too long ago, where he said, everyone's so fixated on the times that nobody cares about who won. It's like, it's always, what time do they win? What time do they win? Not who beat who's better than, you know? So it's like, I agree with that as well. And I think looking at it, I'm sure, you know, as an athlete, you can offer a different standpoint as well. But I think there's something scary about being the first person to do something. Like, it's something scary about being the first mover because like, you look at all, like you mentioned, like unions, and I think a union is something that would help track phenomenally. But I also recognize who are the people that have created unions in other sports. Well, their careers pretty much ended. Like if you created a union in the people that created the hockey union, the NHLPA, their hockey career was over. And so it's like, you're creating something that is helping thousands of athletes make tons of money, but your career is probably going to be over. And it's like, am I willing to kind of put my livelihood at risk for people I don't even know exist yet, you know? So it's like, I recognize the difficulty. It's easy for me. I'm not in the sport. I can easily say, nah, just do it. But it's like, when you're in there, it's like, I got a family to feed. Like, I got people I got to look after, you know? So I recognize the difficulty in trying to, be on both sides of that thing.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. That's definitely a reality. And I always, like, I don't go in on it and be like, rip them apart. I try to come from like the angle of, let's collectively come together and grow the sport. Because what's better for the sport is better for both parties. So it's like a partnership rather than attacking them. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm sure they've done things to try and improve the sport. And a lot of people like will talk down on it and be like, oh, what is that? What's that going to do? But there have been some good changes. Like the change with the World Athletics website has improved a lot versus what it was before. Like if you go on someone's profile, you can see like head to heads against people. You can see how many times they've run like under 10-10, under 10 flat, under 9-9. And I think that's another missed opportunity as well. Whereas like people don't know these kind of stats. Like you might know it because you actually pay attention, but like a lot of people don't know, like you could take Aaron Brown and Andre DeGrasse and put them side by side and see how many times Aaron's beat them, or what meets, how many times Andre's beat him. Like you can see our head-to-head score, and that could be highlighted at the track meet. Like, okay, the score between Fred Curley and Marvin Bracey is 4-3 or whatever. Like this would put it 5-3 and give him the edge for the season or whatever. Like, you know, there's just subplots that can add to the compellingness of the race that I feel like aren't being showcased.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, I think having those records, like we have records for our basketball teams. It's like, and look, look, so everyone knows not USC, what is it? Golden State, when they had their something like 72-9 season. Everyone knows, okay, you had the 72, so we all know the record. Okay, tell me, what was the score of their 20th game of the season? Do you know exactly no one knows? It's like, okay, but people care about what your time is. It's like, so why don't, hey, when we're showcasing your PR, showcase what your record is right now. It's like, hey, look, Aaron Brown this year has 5 top three finishes, and 2 of those he came in first or whatever it is. So it's like, it gives you this, like, because people know that, oh, top 3, oh, first. But if I show you, okay, he ran, 1983 this year, it's like, unless you're in the 200, and you know what that means, that's just a number and it means nothing. Like, so it's like, give the other stuff of, people know those top 3 and, winning and things like that,
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's a lot of stuff that I think could change and develop looking in track and field, and hoping for next year. What are some things, like, I guess you could say realistic type things that you might foresee hopefully being able to change by the time, we're sitting here this time next year? Anything that you're like, hey, if one thing could change, this is what I would like it to be.
In track, like changing.
Yeah.
Oh man. That's a tough one, because like there's so many things that can change. I just don't know which ones will change.
We'll just say, if you could, it could be anything. Like, hey, what if you could change one thing? It's like I could pick? You pick. Like, hey, Sebastian Coe comes to you and is like, look, you're the one man on this. You tell me what you want changed. We're doing it tomorrow. Yeah. What's that thing?
Okay, I would say let's define what a professional athlete is. So what I mean by that is, exactly who's in the NBA because they're all assigned to a team. So in track, let's make it so that like top 25 in your event, you're considered professional, whatever. And then we have a circuit just for those top 25. And the way you crack into that top 25 is to get to ascend in the rankings, right? So that gives more credence to the ranking system that they have, because they have a ranking system and not a lot of people know or pay attention to it or even give it respect, because it's incentivized for people to run in Europe, of course, because that's where the majority of the sport is, and on the professional circuit, and the majority of the diamond leagues. But we have to have some type of discernment between like who's professional and who's not. It doesn't look good when people who are like, saying that they're pro, but they're really like, 50th in the event.
My name's on World Athletics. Yeah, I have a profile from when I jumped 15-9. I'm not on the NFL profile because I played flag football once. Exactly. I shouldn't be on that website, but I am.
Exactly. And that's what takes us from being an amateur sport to a professional sport, is actually giving respect to the people who are actually pros, right? And then when you minimize how many people are actually pros, it's easier to support them. Because if you remember during the pandemic, they came out with like this fund to like help athletics. I don't even remember what they called it, but it was like some fun where they had all these like qualifiers, like you have to be this and you can't be this ranked high or whatever. But if you look at it, like, who is that money going to? There are so many people that are quote unquote track athletes and professionals That's like, how do you support all of them? But if you minimize the number, now you have a better way to increase the prize money and make it more respectable and comparable to other sports like golfers. I know a professional golfer who told me that the last place finisher gets $10,000. In a Diamond League, first place gets $10,000, right? So like, if we're trying to get our sums to respectable levels where it's not like, oh my God, track makes no money, we got to minimize the amount of money that's going out. So let's define who's a pro, have a league just for them, and then a sub league for people who are trying to aspire to get into that league. Use a ranking system where it's like, if you're ranked in this amount, you're in this league, and the way to get in there is to get enough points from your sub league, run fast enough to get enough points, and then you can knock somebody out. They got to work harder. Sorry, you got to earn your spot back. And then let's have less meets. Like, all these rinky-dink meets here and there, whatever, are cool, but we can make those like the B tier meets and have lower money. But like, let's have the higher tier meets, let's have less of them, but then pool the money together. So now we actually get more money, and then define how people actually get paid. Like, a lot of people don't know a big sum of money that people get to come to the meets is the appearance fees. How do they decide the appearance fees? Who gets what? How much are they getting? Nobody knows that. It's all behind doors. It's all shake hands with the agents or whatever. So nobody knows like who's getting what. But how dope would it be to be like, okay, the Brussels Diamond League has a budget of 500,000, and we get to see exactly how they're spending their 500,000. Like, okay, we're going to spend 80,000 to bring Shelly Ann in. We're going to spend 100,000 to bring Mondo in or whatever. We're going to spend 50,000 to bring Sydney in. And then it's like, okay, we're seeing how they're spending it. We know there's more transparency. Now we understand how athletes are getting paid. And it's cool to see how they're like, who they're drafting, like who they're picking. You can make an event out of it. You can make it like, instead of just having the press conference where you're asking the same questions over and over, we could have the draft where it's like, okay, we spent it on this, and you know, they're in the meet now. And then you can ask them what they're trying to do, give them incentives like, okay, Mondo, if you break the world record here, you get this, or like if you jump over 6, you get this, like time bonuses or height bonuses, whatever, to make sure that athletes give an honest effort. Just, I don't know, there's like so many ideas you can go with it, and it seems like we're just kind of stuck in the same old stuff.
Yeah, no, I like that. Like the idea of like, hey, if I have $100, would it be more impactful to give everybody 100 people $1 or to give 10 people $10? Which is going to have a bigger impact? Well, probably the giving 10 people $10. Sure, there are going to be plenty of people that are like, man, why didn't you give me, like, it's like, well, yeah, if I spread the wealth so thin, then then it's pointless for everyone. Then you're screwing everybody over. Or hey, if you can get into this top 10, you're going to be making more. It's like, you know, look at it the other ways where it's like the NBA, the G League, the NFL, there's no real, I guess, what XFL that's coming out, I guess, but you know, like having those levels of sport where it's like, hey, you have to run X amount this time, maybe your world athletic score has to be this high, and then you get into a certain circuit. Let's say, I don't know, American Track League. So I'm thinking of it as something here. It's like, hey, you can run here, and this is the professional thing. Like, for example, did you watch the NBA championship this past year? Or
some of it, yeah.
Some of it, okay. Did you watch the world championship that happened in for basketball?
No.
Why not? It's the world championship. It's bigger. It just happened. There you go. See, you watch. Nobody cares. But like, there's world championships for every event. Like every sport has a world championship. But it's these leagues that are smaller. They have a bigger impact. So it's like, hey, maybe if a American Track League was the NBA of track and field, then it's like, hey, I watched the American Track League, or I watched the Diamond League final because that's the big event. And, you know, the World Championship, that's fantastic, but this is what I watched. So it's like, you gotta, you know, there's ways to make more money. And I think there's definitely an opportunity for it, you know, seeing what happens in the future.
Yeah. I think there should always be a minimum. So if you crack, like, if you go to the top 25 in your event or whatever, you should have a minimum where it's like, okay, if you show up at the meet, you get a couple $1,000s, right? So that way, at least people know they're able to sustain themselves. When you're coming to a meet and last place gets $500, like, what are you going to do with that? By the time you get taxed, pay your agent, like, you're left with like what, you know,
$100.
a utility bill. Like, come on, like, we gotta make it so that we're supporting the elite of the sport, and then have a sub tier for, like let's call it like a grassroots league that like funnels athletes and gives them an opportunity to get into that elite status in order to be a sustainable sport. Like you said, there's the G League, so like people can go there, grind, get better, get noticed, get picked up, and go into the NBA. Like they get 10-day contracts, 30-day contracts, they can prove themselves, whatever. Yeah. But like we have to be able to support the elite of the sport, and then the I guess grassroots of the sport, so that there's an opportunity for them to come up.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, it's interesting that, like, in my opinion, like NCAA track and field does it really well when it comes to marketing. Like, man, the if you're an NCAA star, like you probably have a bigger, fan base or notoriety or marketing department than if you become a pro, because then you're on your own. But in basketball, you go from Kentucky to the Sixers. It's like, you got an even bigger thing. Like you got a big team behind you. So it's like there's things to improve, and I hopefully we'll see some of it, because I'm sure being an athlete and being a fan of the sport, I'm like, there's room for growth, though, at least. So I think that's something important. But wanted to finish things up with you here. Had a few fan questions wanted to ask you. First, not really a fan question, but it was my question. So you do, I think it's like before every race, you do like the salute and point. Wondering where that came from and what got you interested in doing that?
To be honest, there's no rhyme or reason. It just like, you're on the line and sometimes you're thinking like, what should I do? And that just what naturally I thought of. So I just kind of stuck with it. Sometimes I might shake it up, sometimes I get a little hotline bling, like a Drake thing, or I don't know, like if sometimes when something happens, like I might make a joke out of it. But if I can't think of anything, or if I'm just like not in the mood or just focused, locked in, easy salute, let's go, let's do it.
There we go. Make it easy. Next one we have for you, this is from Alex Rudy, a little bit of an interesting one. Do you drink water in between your reps?
So I try not to. When it's like super hot outside, like right now in Florida, it feels like triple digits every time you go out. So sometimes like I'm dying and I just kind of need to, but I try not to, because it teaches me to not look forward to that water in between the reps. When my coach like does a workout where there's very short rest and we don't have time to get water, I might be like, oh my God, I'm dying because I didn't get my water, whatever. But if I train myself not to depend on it and I wait till like the entire set's done, I feel like that's a psychological training mode where I'm like stronger for it. And then even like in a race, like if you're halfway through it and you feel a little fatigued, you might naturally be like, oh man, I feel thirsty, whatever, because you're like used to like running a little bit and then getting water and whatever and getting water. But if you train yourself like to depend on running your rep and finishing your set and then getting water, then you're like, okay, once I'm done the race, then I'll get the water. And it's just kind of like a psychological thing.
Man, you're stronger than me. I couldn't do any of that. I needed water immediately. I was dying. I finished that 150. I'm like, coach, I don't care. I need that extra 5 seconds of break. I can't do it. Stronger than me. I mean,
sometimes my teammates get on me because I'm walking back too fast. They're like, oh, let me get water. I'm like, no, let's go. Come on, knock it out.
They're like, come on, man, give me a second. Yeah. This is from Najor Fitness. He says, who were your mentors growing up?
Oh man, I've had a lot. Like, I think early on, obviously my club coach was the one that got me into track just competitively. So him for sure. Over the years, Donovan Bailey's became a mentor figure. Anson Henry, he's been a mentor for me, older guy that's always dropped down knowledge for me. Justin Gatlin's a huge one when I came to the training group I'm at now, and even still to this day, one of my good friends and also a big mentor figure for me. I'll go with those three.
Cool. Well, so then kind of aside off of that one, you mentioned Donovan Bailey. And so I remember back when it was him, Michael Johnson, when they had the race, that was like peak track. There was like, I think they said it was like 50,000 people in the arena. Mm-hmm. Do you if you were to think of, do you think that type of model could happen now? Are there any athletes or any things that could get that type of excitement this year?
For sure. Like, you see how obviously it wouldn't have played out this year, but let's just assume everyone's healthy. You see how anytime Fred does something, Jacobs is always like saying something like, "Hey man, I'm coming for you," or whatever he says. Imagine if they could just line up a race just for them two. Like, Jacobs is trying to get into the Diamond League final. What if we just said, scratch that? Let's just make our own meet between him and the world champion. Since he's the defending Olympic champion, he wants to go against the world championship or champion. Let's line them two up and let's see what goes on. Right? Like, how dope would that be?
Oh yeah, I would like that.
I don't know why we got away from that model. Like, it seemed like such a perfect thing. And maybe it's because Michael Johnson pulled up and then it's like, we never want to do that again because, you know, I heard that the winner got like $1 million or something crazy like that. So maybe there's like, all this money wasted and the race didn't even really play out. But it was still cool. People still talk about it to this day. And that was what, 97, something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
Come on. That's what, 15 years ago? Oh, no, more than that.
24 years
25
ago.
years
25
ago?
years ago, yeah.
People still talk about, like, remember that race, whatever. So like, why don't we do that more? Why don't we go with the stuff that works? Why do we keep going back to the same old stuff when people keep complaining about the sport not growing and being bigger and more popular? Why don't we try the stuff that actually was cool?
Yeah, that's what I'm with. Like, hey, I love the street meets. I love those, all like the unique things. Like, let's figure that out. Last question for you here. This is from Tina Milburn. She says, who was the chillest teammate that you have ever bunked with at a meet?
Probably Brendan.
Who?
Brendan Rodney.
Rodney. Yeah, I competed against him back in college. He
really?
dusted my butt. Yeah. Bet we both were in the NEC. I competed for Mount St. Mary's. He was with LIU. And he was a senior when I was a freshman. And so he broke like all the records. But my one claim to fame is that we won the 4x1 against them and they lost because they like they dropped the baton or something. But still to this day, I'm like, hey, we got a victory over the over the eventual world champion.
You come across the line first. That's a dub in my book.
There you go. Doesn't matter how you get there. Yeah,
but Brendan, he's real chill. Again, I've known him for forever. Like, even before track, we played against each other in basketball, in club basketball.
Oh, wow.
So like we go way back, and, you know, he's been a good friend of mine growing up, you know, came to my wedding, all that stuff. He's a good guy to compete with, hang out with. So yeah, I'd probably go with Brendan.
Killer on that turn. Definitely got a good turn. Well, thank you so much, Aaron, for joining us. It's been awesome hearing about you and your story. Where could people go if they wanted to follow up with you, whether it's on social media or anything like that?
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on. If you want to follow me, at Kingsley SC is my Twitter handle, my Instagram handle, my TikTok handle. My YouTube is Aaron Kingsley Brown or Kingsley TV. And yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me. I'm most active on those platforms. Got a lot of great content coming out in the future, so look out for that. Definitely want to talk more about this professional track stuff and how to kind of fix the pro track circuit. So look out for videos in the future on that. I'm going to give my own ideas. If other people don't want to come up with it, I'm just going to throw it out and they can have it for free.
Giving out some free game. Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Aaron. And thank you for everyone who's listening. It's been another episode of Track World News. Want more content? Go follow us over on Instagram. You also probably can go and check out our website. I think it's going to be up by the time this is coming out. We'll keep our fingers crossed. We've been working on that. We'll have different articles and things like that on there. But thank you. Have a good one. Peace.